about it ever since I watched it.
Tell me.
Have you heard of this movie? It came out last year, Wicked.
Ah,
It's
no, not really.
takeoff on the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, vaguely. Yeah, who's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that? Who are
yeah.
the
So
stars?
so let's see here. Wicked. It's a 2024 American musical fantasy film directed by John M. Chu and written by a bunch of people. Let's see here. Who it's based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel. It's reimagining of the Oz books in the 1939 film, The Wizard of Oz. Ariana Grande
Oh,
was
that's
the star
right.
of that, and
Her and that
she
other
was
woman.
fantastic.
Yeah, her
And
and that other woman been running around holding hands and getting all weird. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I don't know anything about her. Let's see. It's got Ariana Grande. She was Galinda. Jonathan Bailey. Let's see. Ethan Slater. I didn't know any of these people. I didn't even know who Ariana Grande was.
Oh,
But let me tell
really?
you what. Her part and the woman that played the Wicked Witch, they were fantastic.
Mm,
I'm not a huge musical person,
me
but
either.
this was a fantastic production. The sets were amazing, Barry. I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. The whole fantasy part of it was really cool. The singing, these people have amazing voices. I mean, truly
Ariana
amazing.
Grande, truly, she's very talented.
Holy cow. I'd never seen her before. She's very pretty. And she's playing the good witch, and she does a marvelous job. But this woman that plays the Wicked Witch of the West, she was fantastic. You know what the thing about this movie was, besides the fantasy and the singing and all the set and everything, the bottom line, it felt like they were trying to portray a message here, which was if you think for yourself and use your critical thinking skills and don't go along with the pack on everything and just blindly do things that people are trying
Mm.
to control you by doing. If you do that, you're going to set yourself in a position where possibly everyone is against you and
Uh-huh.
everyone is going to say that you're wicked. But the bottom line is, you can have peace in your own heart, knowing that you're being true to yourself and true to what you actually believe. And it's not all about having a million friends and being popular. It's about knowing yourself and loving yourself and being true to yourself. I think that was what that was about. And that's a very hard thing to do, especially today when we have so much division out there and so much pressure to go along with the pack on everything. This was a great, fun commentary on that. And I don't know, I got a lot out of it. It's caused me to think so much about it. There were all kinds of different themes of friendship and betrayal and just who a real friend is. I would highly recommend check out that film. It's free right now. Just a few days ago, I was trying to get it on Prime, and I had to pay for it. Like outrageous. It was like $25 or
Yeah.
something like that. But I found it free. I think it was on Peacock, and
Mm.
so you can watch it now. It's a pretty awesome film.
Well, that's interesting. My prediction would have been that your review would be exactly the opposite of what you just said.
I thought for sure that I was not going to like this film, and uh,
Right.
my my son told me that he saw it, told me that he thought that I would like it.
Wow.
He's actually pretty good at telling me like what
He
he
knows
seems
you.
to know what movies I would
Hmm.
like and what movies I wouldn't like. So I loved it actually. I thought it was really great.
Well, that's really good to know. All right.
I got one more.
Getting Go ahead.
Okay, so this weekend is a big event here if you're a Chosen fan. And
Chosen.
The Chosen is a show. It's a series that's out. They're about to debut their fifth season here. It was on the Angel Network. This thing is going big time here. Let's see. The Chosen is going to be on a different channel. It's going to be on Prime. So that's coming up. But this weekend it's actually going to be in the theater. So it's season 5 and it's in the theater. So you can see it ahead of time. It'll be on Prime in June. But I got to tell you, Barry, I've always been a big I've always liked these Jesus movies all my life. Even before I was a Christian, I thought they were really cool. Um, but this is the very best one I've ever seen. And the reason for it is because it's in series format. So it's a long format and you really get into the stories and it's very true to the Bible, except for one thing is very different from all the other films I've seen is they've really made the characters relatable. And really, when I read the Bible, I can really relate to the characters in the Gospels. But these guys have done this fantastic job of making them relatable, very likable. You can understand the Bible stories so much more. It's just more relative to your own life when you watch it. You'll fall in love with these people. The guy that plays Jesus is amazing. Really more like the way that I interpret the Bible, a very happy person, not a person that you would want to avoid, somebody you would just want to be with because there's some kind of joy about him in almost every scene that you see. I think if you haven't seen this before, you're going to love it. But it's season 5, and then this particular season is the last week before he goes to the cross. So it's a very exciting climax of the whole thing. I don't know if this is the last one or not, but The Chosen, this one's coming out.
Let me ask you 2 questions about that.
Yeah,
One, how do you go to a theater and see an entire season?
that is a mystery to me. I've been wondering the same thing because they did this last time when they came out with season 4, right around the Easter holiday. And a friend of mine went and saw it with his wife and was very moved by the whole thing.
But it
And
must be edited. I
but you
mean,
would think, yeah, like how do you watch a whole like because that's hours, right?
many. I mean, you would think
Yeah.
it would at least be, you would think it would at least be 8 episodes, 45 minutes each,
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean it's I don't know how is it an all day event? I have no idea,
Here's my
but
second
people are
question.
doing this. Yeah,
How
go ahead.
is Jesus portrayed? And this is like it's always a topic. Is he like a white guy? Does he seem Middle Eastern or what?
He seems very Middle Eastern, but he does appear to be a white guy with like a Middle Eastern accent. He's kind of kind of a
He's the Gal
Spanish
Gadot.
guy. Uh,
Okay, so it's what they did with Wonder Woman. They got somebody that's barely not white, Gal
yeah,
Gadot, to cross that bridge,
yeah,
but
and I got
not
to tell you,
alienate their audience. Yeah, it's
and
funny how they do
they
that.
really did a great job with this pick. I'm telling you, I can't even explain what this guy has done, but he's made himself like he here's something in the Bible. There's a scene in the Bible where Jesus is talking, and there's all these religious leaders there that are like, "Are you kidding me?" He's telling them, "Look, I, God is a forgiving God." And they're like, "What?" They don't like that, the religious leaders,
Mm.
because they can control people this way, right? But the sinners, the tax collectors, and the prostitutes, they hear what Jesus is saying and they gather to him. These are like the worst of the worst in society that are attracted to him and gathered to him. Now, if he had a message of judgment, "You're going to hell, you sinner," these people would not be attracted to Jesus,
Yeah.
right? And so Jesus in the film, they do a great job of making him that attractive figure. Like if you saw him walking down the street, you'd be like, "Hold on a second, come here." It's so like a lovable character. That's really the whole thing. And it jumps off the page in my Bible, but I've never seen a film actually be able to pull that off. And this one comes pretty close. And
Hmm.
so my friend Tim and Christina saw it. They were so moved. They became Christians actually, and now they're a part of my Bible study.
Oh, how
And
cool.
it
You
is
know, I was
it's really
thinking the
pretty
other
awesome.
day, do you ever want to do a shout out for your Bible study on here and welcome other people in, or do you like to keep it kind of on the down low?
I mean, the Bible study is very interesting. It's not something I would want to have a huge crowd in because
Mm.
the whole thing is it's very intimate, and we've got a group of about 10 people that are regular that come to the Bible study. And the cool thing about it is this is we really are focused on revelation and learning more. And there isn't a teacher in our Bible study. Well, here's how we look at it is that, we are all filled with the Holy Spirit and we are part of the body of Christ. And what that means is just like my own body, I've got a hand, I've got an eye, I got a foot, right? Well, we all play a part of the body of Christ, but if you're a hand, you can only do what the hand does, or if you're an eye, you can only do what the eye does. And the same with a foot. If you put an eye, a foot, and a hand together, and you're working in conjunction, you can do 1,000 times more. Well, that's like our Bible study. When we come into the Bible study, we have a subject, but everybody being a part of the body has a part of God's message. And when we share with each other, brings revelation. It's almost like we have a mastermind in the group that helps us to see things we wouldn't have seen. This has been one of the best Bible experiences I've ever had in my life, or church experiences for that matter, because first off, it's every time I go, I feel like I've learned so much more. And I also feel this joy that I haven't really felt before coming to the meeting. I look forward to it so much, and after I feel built up and charged up for the week. And I don't feel it's not like at the end, hey, let's pass around the collection plate. Now everybody
Uh,
feels guilty, and you know what I mean. That part
uh-huh.
of it really screws people up right there.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
We got a
I get
church
it.
fund, it's a new building, all this kind of stuff. We don't have any of that kind of stuff. It's just pure word and love. And
Okay, so you don't want to necessarily share a link.
yeah, I think
Keep it
that
more
that
personal.
wouldn't be a good thing. I
All
think
right.
people might feel uncomfortable coming into that.
Okay, cool.
But highly suggest that people get involved in something intimate like that.
Mhm.
It's not a huge group. See, at church, you can't really ask questions like, where did Jesus come from? Or where did God come from? All these kinds of things because you feel stupid. But in a
Mhm.
Bible study with an intimate setting, you can those kind of questions around the things that are really in your heart. So the smaller groups are, I think, better.
This is going to play into a lot of our conversation in this episode because I want to talk about. I'm so excited about the opportunities now that the Department of Education is defunct. I mean, I've given it a lot of thought. We're going to have a good
Yeah,
conversation on that. What you just said right there, I think, plays into that as well. But
really.
there's all kinds of things with mental health care. We're going to talk about demons in a minute and battling demons. I think also groups online, people that are battling the same demons. I think we're in a new day and age that we need to embrace this day and age and stop doing things in the 20th century kind of a way. And we just have a lot of awareness and a lot of new tools right at our fingertips. And so it's time to start going there. You know what? Before we go anyplace else, I was thinking I think it's a really good idea that we just briefly touch on what we've been doing with our diets lately. And
Ah,
there's a reason for that. One, you seem to be easily maintaining what you did. In other words, this is key because most people in America go on yo yo diets. And what it does
right.
is it feeds into compulsive behavior, which is our freaking problem in America. Now,
Yeah, you got
myself,
that
I
right.
kind of go slowly up and down, right? And I'm back to, I just started, last week, about 6 days ago, I started back on intermittent fasting very
Right.
reluctantly. And I'm really freaking hungry right now.
Oh boy.
And I'm not going to be eating until after this podcast. But I want to mention that here I am on day 6. Like the first few days, my body's like, oh, I don't notice this doing anything because I always have so much food on board in my body that you don't notice it first, but by day 4 and 5, it's starting. My body's starting to go like, "Hey, man, I need some food a little earlier than this. And here I am on day 6. I'm really hungry, and I typically
Right,
don't eat until about 11 o'clock. And today's going to be noon. But my point to this, and I'm about done. I want to keep this part brief. We got a lot to
right,
cover.
right,
Uh, because this is important. We all need to talk about these. We're doing things, you and I are doing things very differently, but we're having success, right?
right,
With
right.
maintaining. And so I find that the intermittent fasting thing works good for me for a few months, maybe 6 months. And then I got to change things again. And what I did last time is go to, okay, I need just more small meals, control the amount of intake, the binging,
Right.
because what happens with me is I start eating an ungodly amount at 11 o'clock to noon when I finally get to eat. But right now, here's my point is that I am now having several hours or at least a few hours a day where I'm actually hungry. How many Americans can say they have a few hours a day where they're actually hungry? Not most of us.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what we
that's true.
say? I could eat. And
Yeah,
that's when we
yeah,
eat.
this is true.
It's
This is
bad.
true.
Tell
Yeah,
me
yeah.
about how you've been maintaining, what you've been doing. We
Well,
haven't talked about it in a long time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
how about start with how you first lost all this weight?
Okay, so as we've talked about before, it's the program is called Optavia, and it is with Optavia you get a coach and somebody that's done it before that can help you through it, and that is actually the secret sauce to this. I mean, they have really good food, but it's really the coach part that you need somebody to help you through this. It's almost like a guide to help you down a path, and they encourage you along the way because there's going to be times where you're like, I can't do this, and you need that kind of backup. But anyway, within about a year I was able to lose 80 pounds, and
80
that was
pounds.
that was 2
80
years
pounds.
ago. And now I've 2 years ago that I achieved the 80 pounds, and now I've been about well, it's been 2 years of maintaining that weight. So I
That's
got
amazing.
myself down to the weight that I wanted. And now I kind of bounce around in a zone of about 8 pounds, and I'm very
Same here.
vigilant. That's the real key is I weigh myself every day. And I'm a little bit anal about the whole thing. So as I'm seeing myself tick up, I totally know how to control it, and I know how to make it tick back down again. And it's really, you know, um, watching, it's really carbs is a big thing, right? Like,
I
because I
hate that.
love bread
Me
and I love
too.
potatoes and
Me
I love
too.
more bread and more potatoes. And
Me
um,
too.
and so, it's like just kind of stay don't overindulge in those things. I
It's
find myself on the weekends treating myself with those kind of
sure.
things, and I'll tick
Sure.
up. And then during the weekdays, I'll be more in control of that sort of thing with my meals and all. And I just watch it the whole time and just make sure I'm in that zone. And I feel really good about it that I've been able to. The whole thing is that I learned how to control it. That's
Okay.
really the big deal. And I feel great. I mean, I was able to buy all new clothes a couple of years ago, and they still fit. This is it's
That's
like,
amazing.
and here we're transitioning into summer here. Like it's
Hmm.
starting to get warmer out. The other day it got up to 98 degrees here. And
You're like,
so
oh no,
yeah, you
here we
know how it
go.
is after
Yeah.
wintertime and you put on your shorts for the first time and you're like, how did those shorts shrink? Just
Yeah.
sitting there all winter long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure they shrunk, right?
Yeah.
And when you put on clothes you haven't worn for a while and they fit you perfectly, what a blessing that is, man.
That
That is,
is.
oh, I
So I
love
like
it.
two things about, well, I like one thing about it is that you learn to go ahead and give yourself some grace over the
Right.
weekend, and
Yes.
you have the confidence that you can always reel it back in. So you're not flirting with disaster. It's just a little
Yes.
bit of a reward, I would say.
It
Now,
is. It is
question.
just like that. Yes, go ahead.
So you started out with kind of the prepackaged meals. You really followed a very strict program.
I
Where
did.
are you today, 2 years later, in your
I
maintenance?
still use the food bars that they had because they're very tasty. Actually, I really like them.
What about
And so
expense wise?
so um, I'm Okay, I'll get to that. So they have this cereal that I like. I have cashew milk. So I don't have any dairy anymore.
Right, same.
And I love starting out with this, starting my day out, and it just takes me like into like the noon hour, and then I have like a snack bar at that time, and then a little bit later, 2, 3 o'clock, I'll have another one. So I'll have about three of those during the day, and then I'll
Sounds
go to
good.
my dinner. I don't want to try to keep it lean and mean, lean and green, not lean and mean. So like for instance, last night I had ground beef. We didn't know what we were going to have. We had
Oh,
ground beef. It was like I had a burger, but I didn't have the bread, and it was ground beef. And I treated myself. I put some shredded cheese on top of that, and I put some pickles in there and some avocado. Oh my God, it was
that
delicious.
sounds good.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
these are except for the cheese part, but I only had a little bit of that. It was fantastic. I had a good meal. I felt good, and you know what? Sometimes late at night, I'll get like oh man, I'm hungry. I gotta go. I'll have another one of those bars, or I also have
Oh,
shakes and stuff like
oh,
that. And it just kind of puts a damper on it's only like 100 calories, but I'm not as hungry anymore. And then if I want a snack after that, it's like I can control it, right? Like I'm not
that's
out of
that's good.
control.
And so then I guess the summation of that is that you're doing a hybrid. You like using
Yes,
their snacks and things like that,
I
but you
do.
make your own meals now.
And I can treat myself at any time. Like the other day, I had a pizza. I haven't had pizza in like years, but it was like, you know what? I'm just having one. And we went and we stopped and we had, oh my God, it was so good. But uh, when you have these kind of foods and you haven't had them for a while,
Yeah.
it did taste really good, but I didn't feel right after that. It felt
Uh-huh.
greasy and too
Uh-huh.
much cheese and everything.
Uh-huh.
And so this is one of the things is, and my coach told me this a long time ago, is that you know what? You're going to start to feel really good. The problem is we don't know what good actually feels like. We think good is this, but when you're going to figure out that you're not really that hungry all the time.
Right.
And you'll start to normalize how you feel and everything. So, well, I don't eat nearly as much as I used to eat, Barry, and it doesn't matter. I feel
It's because
good.
you're
I
giving
feel
your body what it really wants and
yes,
needs.
and I feel like, man, I can just take off and run right now. And
Uh,
stuff isn't all jiggling around and
yeah, yeah.
everything. It's pretty cool,
That is
right? Like
very cool.
I can still
What
take off, man. And I was just thinking about this the other day. I, you turned 59. I'm going to turn 59 this year. I'm nearly a 60-year-old man. And I mean, I still have my youth about me, I mean, it's a great thing.
I
I
hear you.
I was at the dental office the other day, and the guy was like, "Well, the dentist, how old are you?" 59. He couldn't believe it. I'm like, "Okay, are you working on a tip here, or what's going on here?"
Oh, that's dude, that's
But yeah,
awesome.
it feels good,
Let me ask you this.
But
Um, and let's try to keep this brief. We got a lot to cover. But your exercise routine, are you going to the gym
yeah,
anymore?
yeah,
How are
yeah.
you
So
getting this?
a few weeks ago, I got sick, and I stopped going to the gym, and now that's a problem because I haven't motivated myself to get back
Uh-huh.
again. So I got,
That's a
but
tough
yeah,
part.
but up until that time, I've been very consistent, going like about at least 3 times a week. I go,
Good,
and
good. That's
I
really good.
love it over there. I still go to Planet Fitness, and
Same here.
they're just then no one bothers me over there.
Mm.
I mean, the one I go to, there's hardly anybody there, so it's just like you never have to
I
wait for
go early
anything.
in the morning for that
Yeah.
reason. The afternoon, it's well, for one, I'm too tired in the afternoon when most people go and it's too crowded. I don't like that.
Here's a couple of times that I found are the prime times. It's Monday evening and Friday evening. If you go to the gym, no one's going to be there.
Ah, that's true. That's a really good tip. So I keep going. I had to get over the hernia thing. That wasn't that
Yeah, how
difficult,
are you doing on
actually.
that?
Fine. I think as of like today or yesterday, workout wise, I'm back to where I was. But that was dealing with it for 2 to 3 months. And
That's
as
wild.
you said, when you have those setbacks, it's hard to get back because it's kind of demoralizing. Momentum. Your momentum stuff. We're going to be
That's
talking
what it
about
is.
momentum
And
in.
you get out of your habits.
That's
The big
horrible.
deal, you and I have talked about this for many years, is, you make yourself get into a habit. And one of mine is just let me just indulge me for a second. My dentist was real big on me using a water pick. And I really didn't want to do that, Barry, because what, are you spraying water all over the
Sure.
place and it's going all over? I know Anne Marie's going to hate this,
Right.
and I'm not doing that. And every time, but you know how they do the numbers with your gums and everything. That's the worst part of the dental appointment. And then every time they did it for me, they would frown at me at the end and
Ah,
tell me how I was going to lose all my teeth. And so finally, the dentist educated me on this water pick, and I decided to give it a try. And I forced myself into a habit, Barry, and it was the 3 week thing. Do it consistently for 3 weeks, and you pretty much have to force yourself to do it. But after that, it becomes something that it's a routine. Like you just start
mhm.
doing it automatically. And so I went to the dentist the other day, and they could show me. I go 3 times a year. They showed me the progress I've made since I started using that a year ago, and my numbers improved dramatically just
Okay.
using that water pick. And the one thing I learned was that you don't have to spray the water all over the place. You can actually close your mouth when you're doing
Well,
it.
I
So,
think you would have to close your mouth when you're
well,
doing it, but
no.
you got to learn you got to get into a routine with that, I suppose. Get the
Well, you
knack of it.
do. Well, it's funny because when the guy was educating me on it, he showed me a film, and this guy is using it. And he's got his mouth open. And he's over the sink, and he's spraying
Mm,
water's going
mm.
all over. And he goes, "Okay, what is this guy doing wrong?" And I go, "I don't know, but I hate that the water going all over the place." And he goes, "Yeah, you can close your mouth." I'm what? Oh, I'm buying one of those. So anyhow, now I love it. I can't. I don't
Okay.
want to go to bed without that. So
Well,
get one.
I bought a sonic toothbrush. I talked about it about a year ago on here
Yeah,
because I fell between. They don't last forever. And I bought a new one. It's really good. It's like $44. And I use that about every other time, maybe a third of the time. And the other times I just do the traditional brushing. And but when I use it, I do it very, very thoroughly, and it has a small head on it. So when I'm done with it, it literally feels like when you get your teeth cleaned.
you just got back
Like,
from the dentist, right?
uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
So one way
I
or the
love that
other,
feeling.
highly recommend those because having worked with doing marketing for dentists quite a bit, your dental health leads to other health, and
That's
your
right.
lack thereof can lead to other
Yes.
serious, even heart problems.
Heart disease.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, let's get moving along. We got a lot to cover. I probably the episode title will be Demons, Fact, and Fiction. And so that's for this upfront part. I call it 050 section. And then what I want to get into, there's a lot of things. It's going to really kind of morph. There's a lot of things I think overlap and intertwine. I mentioned before, I want to talk about the decentralization of education. I'm so excited about this. I want to talk about the path from worst to first with education, how we can go leaps and bounds in this country and save this country, mostly save the upcoming generations, even save the generation or two that has been left behind already. Uh,
Mm.
then we go to what's gone on with the Department of Defense, not failing audits, missing trillions of dollars. How do we put up with that? That leads right into that signal, the app leak,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that debacle that you and I talked a little bit about privately. It's just freaking embarrassing to the country. That's all I got that will lead into lightening up. I have a great thing about a 73-year-old that wrote a great book that we'll just take a quick look at. Do you have some things to add in current events?
There's some really good current events that are happening right now, but the NPR thing where they had a hearing this week, NPR, PBS, that was very interesting,
You got to clean
especially
that up.
I think, you and I have talked about NPR and how you used to be a fan and how
Hmm.
things changed in 2016 with Donald Trump, and how you noticed that it
Yeah,
became really an
overnight,
arm, a propaganda arm for a
overnight,
particular party.
in a
Yeah.
very angry
Overnight.
place.
Crazy, crazy.
And
Uh,
all they did was pump out racism stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, boy, they got
Became
grilled
the
on
race
that this
station.
week.
Oh
Yeah, it
yeah?
was a pretty
Let's
cool
hold on
stuff.
to that. I
Exactly.
can't wait
All
to hear
right,
about it.
very good. Let's go.
Okay, so demons, I remember bringing this up about a year or two ago, and
Uh-huh.
it's just something that I think about more and more. And what I mean by that is, hey, let's throw out some common phrases: confronting our inner demons, positive versus negative energy. Hey, the power of positive thinking, momentum shifting, sports. Boy, you could feel the momentum shifting right now. Well, what the hell are you
Mm.
talking about? Um, and how about misery loves company? That's one too. I could go into deeper stuff about that, but I want to talk about our inner demons, battling our demons, our bad habits, and let's start with the how about the history? How about this? You're battling your demons. We take that for granted today. We don't think about what that really means.
Hmm.
What do you
Yeah, I
think
mean,
about? I'm somebody that I'm going a little out there, but I'll reel it back in. Somebody that tends to believe more and more that we're living in a simulation. And I think that these demons, which would which would hint that there's an intelligence behind these forces of negative forces.
yeah.
And I do believe there is.
Well, I do, of course, and I think there's pretty good evidence that there is demonic influence that's happening out there, and also I think we could make a good case for angels as well. Um, the interesting thing to me is that there's an area of the Bible, Ephesians 6, and it talks about the hierarchy. There's like an organization that Satan has with these demons, and it's much like a business where you've got an organizational structure with a CEO at the top, and you've got like these organizations of people that report up to each other. And the Bible in Ephesians talks about our fight isn't against flesh and blood, but of powers and principalities in high places. So it's talking about powers and principalities are it's this hierarchy that they have, and really the Bible makes it clear that there are certain demons that are responsible for certain areas. Here's my point. You look at some of the things that are impacting us today. Let's take alcoholism for an example. And when you take a look at what people are dealing with alcoholism, many of the exact same traits are happening. And you could really look at alcoholism and see the darkness there. It's evil, it's dark, it's oppressive, it just brings people down, but it's got like a lot of similar things that are happening, similar thought patterns are happening with people. And it seems to me that you could take a look at something like that. I can't prove it, but you can take a look at something like that and say, huh, there could be, look, when you're drinking hard liquor, what do they call it? Spirits. Okay.
Right,
Why
right.
do they call it that? Why do they say that you're fighting your inner demons? Where did that come from? It comes from, I think, the fact that inside of all of us, inside of our heart of hearts, we know that this is the truth. We want to deny this, right? Because it seems like sci-fi, and it's kind of scary too, to
Like
admit this,
sci-fi.
especially when you don't know about the good side. The Bible says this about demons and angels. Speaking of angels and the good guys that are on our side, there's more of us than there are of them. The Bible makes it clear that a third of the angels were cast out of heaven. So that heaven, that means two-thirds of them are still on the good side. So there's more of us than there are of them. And
I
so,
want to say something to
go
that
ahead.
right there because that was important what you said about alcohol. I certainly know and notice that when as soon as anybody gets a few drinks in them and people handle it and metabolize it differently, but here's the general point is you start dealing with someone's ego now instead of their
Yes,
true self, their true pure
that's
self.
right.
Uh,
Oh boy.
so So it kind of goes to what you're saying. And by the way, I never told you this. I quit drinking 6 months ago
Oh,
completely.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And
Good for you.
I don't
I
talk about it.
hardly ever drink
Mm,
myself because it just brings me down. It's a depressant,
it
really.
is.
And
Yes.
yeah, no, very this is the thing is that the Bible also makes it very clear that Satan's entrance into your influencing you isn't through your logical mind, it's through your emotions. That's
Mm.
where he can
Ah,
capitalize.
yeah.
And you just mentioned pride. Boy, I tell you, you can get somebody on the emotional side so easily if you prick their pride.
Uh-huh.
And that's exactly
We
what
saw Trump
Satan's
get killed by
MO is.
Kamala Harris as a
That's right,
result.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so look at what Satan does in the Garden of Evil when Eden, Garden of Evil, Garden of Eden, when he's talking to Adam and Eve, he's saying, "Did God really say not to eat that? And if you eat that, you're gonna." He's trying to keep this back from you. If you eat it, your eyes are gonna be open, and you're gonna be just like him. And so, see, he's going after their pride right there. Here's the bottom line was he already made them like him. And so, but Satan's coming in and going after the pride thing. And so this is the crazy thing that we're looking at is that demonic influence is really most prevalent in that emotional state. And look at what we've seen over the past several years. When you get a crowd whipped up into an emotional state, what do they start doing? They start doing the same things. They start burning stuff down. They start beating the crap out of each other. It's the same thing every time. That's because it's the same demonic eternal spirits that are a part of that. Their personalities don't change. And we've seen these personalities all throughout history.
Hmm. I wanted to say that this brings me to, I mentioned last week briefly that twice now I've interviewed Dr. Glenn Livingston, who is one of my favorite guests. And
Yeah.
he makes me think about all this stuff. He struggled with a food addiction, and he also worked in the food industry. And he says he's been trying to redeem himself. He's a psychologist, comes from a long line of psychologists. He's a very successful one. And but he worked in the food industry, helping them refine their manipulation to get you addicted to more crap.
Wow. That was his
Uh-huh.
job, huh?
Uh-huh.
What a
Yeah.
job. How do you look at
So,
yourself in the mirror after that?
well, he admits that he's been trying to redeem himself ever since, and he struggled with his health and his weight as a result of
Wow.
the addictions with that food can bring, especially our horrible food that we have here in the U.S. And so he started taking notes on how to overcome it, and I guess the word would be anamorphized when we you know how Bugs Bunny is an anamorphized version of a rabbit. He talks.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or I think you could do that with objects. Anyways, he did that with his demon, his food demon. He anamorphized it. It's like personifying it as a pig,
Right. Right.
and it makes me think.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to share like this is over 50 startingover.com, our website. And if you just scroll down a little bit, you go to the latest, hey, the latest episode right there. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my last thumbnail. Thought I did a
Cool thumbnail, man. Look how cool that looks.
I'm,
We look cool on there, man.
I think I'm going to try to follow this theme here because I like it too. I think it looks
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
intriguing. So what I wanted to bring you to is if you go below it, it says all 050 podcasts. Now, if you click on that, I'll admit it takes a long time to load, like a full minute, because we got 294 episodes on there.
Holy cow, man.
So it brings you here. Oh, I did not put thumbnails in there. So it brings you to the full page, all 050 podcasts. And if you just typed in, I'm trying to show you how to get to that episode. Just type
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
so they're all
Livingston.
here.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
presume.
just do it. Yeah, I said
Couldn't
that
wait
to
to say
him.
that.
I know, I said it to him. I type that in and hit return.
Sure, he's
And
never heard that before.
right, exactly. I know. I felt like a heel even as I said it. He's got two. two episodes. And both episodes are really good, but he says in his latest, he refined his book. First of all, he just took notes on how he overcame his food addiction.
Yeah.
Then he turned it into a book when he was going through a divorce. And he's like, oh my God, this thing took off. I mean, it sold 1 million copies. And
Wow.
that's so he said, you know what? My refined version, the second version, forget the first version. The second version will get you there way faster and more efficiently. So I just wanted to plug that. It's right here. It's called 242 Dr. Livingston, Defeat Your Cravings. So back to just
Pretty
for
cool.
people that'll help.
Defeat your cravings. I mean, that's a big deal too. I mean, we're talking about demons
Uh-huh.
of this, but these cravings
Uh-huh.
seem like I could see the darkness on this because, I mean, just addiction in
Yep.
general is
Yep.
in that it's in that realm
Same
that
thing. We're
we're
talking about
talking
the
about.
same thing here. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And we have the many of these same traits. It's oppression. It is oppression. And then these foods that they are making, it's so crazy to make them addictive like that. And I'm trying to think of like some foods I feel like I personally got addicted to, but uh potato chips, what is inside of those that makes it so
Read the
that you
label.
can never get satisfied off of a
Yeah.
bag of potato chips, right?
It's
And
designed
so
that
you
way.
constantly have to, you're getting dehydrated with all that salt in there and everything, but you eat the whole bag before you know it. And it's not like, oh, I feel better now. No, you need another bag. I mean, how terrible is that? And it does seem like uh, there's something dark uh, and maybe demonic about all of this kind of stuff.
There's a
I
lot of
mean,
things working together there because you're talking about it in this case. We could use anything as a case scenario, but in this case, you're talking about food with purposefully addictive additives.
yes, it's a trap, it's a snare.
It is. It's really that in itself is rather demonic. There's so many great things about capitalism, but we have to also be aware of the trappings of capitalism. And that's where this
Mm.
is a little bit of capitalism gone wild. We're going to lead
Yeah,
right into
no,
this with what happened to the education industry, what happened to the Department of Defense, what happened to every aspect of government. The trap. You and I talked about it last night that there's a money laundering gig that goes on with everything that a government touches, where 90% of your 90%, 90 cents on every dollar turns into part of the money laundering scheme. So they can use 10% to say, see, we're doing this.
well, right,
USA aid.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned capitalism and how there's this dark side of capitalism, but every time we see the dark side of capitalism, it's because our government is fooling with the free
Yes.
market system.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
in this case, with our food, we've got the FDA, right? This
Yeah.
government bureaucracy that oversees everything to make sure all of our food is safe. Are they really doing that, Barry? I don't think
No.
that they
Well,
are.
who profits? Who in turn comes in and profits when the FDA makes us ill? The pharmaceutical industry.
Always. They always do. And look, the FDA has food and
Ozempic.
drugs. Okay. So it's like your
Yeah.
food companies can now collaborate with your drug companies and it's all under one umbrella. So you just pay those people off
Yeah.
and the food and the drug company. And by the way, it's a bureaucracy, so nobody has to be accountable here. Nobody's face is the face of the Food and Drug Administration. We
Right.
didn't
That's a good
elect them
point.
or
It's
anything
the
like that. So
bureaucracies
it's
again.
really easy to corrupt. And all you got to do is have some money and you can corrupt these people. It's very, very interesting. And so I feel like I just went down a rabbit hole.
No, that's fine because what you said was something really important and about the bureaucracies. And I always call it this. I think that there's a
That's right.
term that we should coin and use all the time. It's the diffusion of responsibility.
That's
And
it.
that's what happens that you said. There's no face to it. So nobody takes responsibility. It's the same damn thing, unfortunately, that happens in our government when our representatives go to vote on something. They can worm votes out of certain people by making deals because there's such a diffusion of responsibility. Yes, I voted for that war, but it's because I wanted to do this. They could sleep at night because they can tell themselves that. It wasn't really me.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
did a small part of it.
Well, and personally, I think that the better option here with our food is to have consumer groups that are not part of our politics, that are really about we the people, and that we can look and we on the business side of things, on the private sector side, we have all of the tools. We have way better tools than the government has as far as technology goes to figure out if these foods are safe or not. Not only do we have the technology, we've got the expertise. People in government, they just get elected to that position, and then people just assume, well, they know everything, but they don't.
Well,
They're
that's a
the
fact.
they're the best of the worst in the government.
Yeah,
And so what you want is you want the best of the best. You're not going to find that in government. You're going to find that in the private sector. And you're going to find the private sector is well able to handle these kinds of things.
much
And
better.
in the private, if you have it in the private sector, that's where the free market is, and that's where these things get worked out. Because now, if you know these things are happening, then you're going to also take responsibility for the food because now you don't have this facade that there's this all-knowing FDA that's
Good
protecting you.
point.
Because that's the whole thing. Like you said, early on in this show, you trusted the government. We all trusted the government. Then we came to this revelation, right?
COVID.
Government's lying to us.
Yeah,
And so this is it is that when the government messes with the free market system on top of capitalism, things always go wrong. And that's what I love about this Doge thing and cutting out all these extra things which are a thumb on the scale. Even I know we're going to talk about the Department of Education, but even that, Barry, it's the same thing. Every
it
time
is.
they put their dirty, grubby hands on our lives, we suffer and they win.
That's exactly right. And it works the same way every time. So with the Department of Education, we showed a chart on that a couple weeks
Oh,
ago.
wasn't that stunning?
Yeah, where the expenditures of it was skyrocketed,
Skyrocketing.
like a steep mountain, and
Yet
the return
the
on
test
investment
scores stayed
is
the same.
flatline,
Right,
total
right.
flatline.
Yeah.
And
So what is
so
it like? So trillions of dollars have been spent, and and
just like the Department of
hundreds of
Defense.
thousands of new employees came on, and they didn't move the ball an inch. So if we take it away, is that going to hurt education? I
Sounds like
mean,
Twitter,
obviously
doesn't it?
not, right? Yeah, it's just like Twitter, just
Yeah,
like
yeah. So what I like about this a whole lot, when you think about what's happened to the educational system, why its original purpose and its intents, even behind the scenes, and where it should be going today in an age of awareness is day and night. And there's so much positive that we can get out of this. Like, I'm really excited about it. When we look back at the birth of the educational system, it was meant to produce like a factory, a bunch of factory workers. It was meant to, just to teach people to discipline themselves to do a skill, so that they could earn enough money to sustain a family and get by. But it wasn't really to teach people critical thinking. And and when the Department of Education came into being, which was like about 76, 78, something like that,
79, actually.
79,
Mhm.
it very quickly came usurped. I don't know if it was designed to be this way, but it was quickly usurped uh, by more of a communist methodology and approach, and started teaching us to be more of a collective, and to stop questioning things. It stopped teaching critical thinking skills whatsoever, and paved the way to it's rather obvious. You know what? I wish I'd remember who the guy is. Rogan plays this particular clip all the time, and it's like 1992 or something like that, where this guy explains the whole intent on. I don't know if it's just China, but the maybe it's a globalist thing, but how the intent was to take over the educational system. He's like, we already have it. and how we're taking it over and we're just changing the way that you're thinking. We're teaching collectivism right now, and soon enough, we're going to look like North Korea.
Well,
I
yeah,
should
that's
remember
right.
to find that clip. We should play it all the time.
Well, one of the things they did was they changed our history, and they changed how they taught history to the point where when you get out of high school, you don't know anything about your history. And not only that, I would I would guess that probably 90% of the students coming out of high school, even up to today, would say that that was their most boring class that they ever
Yeah, it
had.
was for me too, till I got to college and had a really good teacher.
And therein lies the whole secret is how you teach history,
Uh-huh.
because
Uh-huh.
history is exciting.
Sure it
History
is. It's
is
a
full
movie.
of the best stories. Exactly, Barry. It
Yeah.
is it's like a drama.
Wins and losses, man.
It is like the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. I mean,
Perfectly put.
it
Yes.
is this epic story, right? And what you need is a great storyteller
Uh-huh.
in history. But we had the worst storytellers. Well, 1792.
Dude, there's
That's really
no
what we got.
more demoralized person than a government worker because they can't have an effect on what they're doing. They're just a drone. And they're in a system that they hate. All they do is complain about it, and yet they can have no effect. And so they're bitter. They're all freaking bitter. And
Well,
yet, and think about teachers, because I know a lot of them. They will talk about the complaints about the system, always say that they need more money and more days off. They got paid pretty good. I'm like, I'll get attacked for even saying that right now because that goes against the grain of what we're supposed to say. They have a lot of freaking days off, to say the least. But they don't have any real, they're not incentivized. The best teachers are not rewarded for being the best teachers, and the worst teachers are not punished for being terrible.
huh. Well, look what they're teaching them, Barry. This is where I was headed to with you. You were talking about how the communists were trying to destroy us
Yeah.
through our educational
Yes.
system. But one of the premises that they had was if they can take our history away, then we'll really have nothing to defend. And so, and if we
Are
can
you talking about
replace if we, now
colonialism?
I'm talking about the communists and what they believed is if they could take our history away through education, then the new people coming out into America as adults are not going to want to defend their country. In fact, if
That's
we can put
success.
in things
That
like
was
the
successful.
1619
That's
movement
my
and
point.
teach people
And
that
colonialism.
America came about all because of they wanted slaves and to oppress
Yeah.
black people, then suddenly you're disgusted with your country. Nobody wants to send their kids into the military and defend
Right.
a disgusting thing like
Or
that.
learn discipline of the military.
Well, and get this. I mean, if you want to take down a country, and by the way, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has 100-year plan to
Yep.
bring down America. 100 years. So they're very patient. By 1948, 2049, that they
They've
plan
been
to be the
successful.
dominant power. Look what they've done. They've made it so that you've got crowds of people out there waving flags from different countries condemning America. It is working.
Mhm.
And it's becoming like a snowball that's getting bigger and bigger coming down the mountain here. And pretty soon we have no choice but to either nip that in the butt or get run over by the giant snowball. And
And back
that's really where we are today.
exactly. And back to because we're going to get to the Department of Defense too, and the conversation is not going to look too
Yeah,
terribly different. But so back to the Department of Education, it created a gigantic bureaucracy
right.
that created a lot of unhappy drone workers, and it sucked the life out of innovation and critical thinking. And I'm not talking about
That's
just
right.
the students. I'm talking about the teachers. Look at the
Right.
teachers that we see on. Do you ever see clips of that channel called Libs of TikTok?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I wish I had some to throw up right now. These teachers will sit there with their purple and green hair and talk about how they hate the parents and that
Oh,
the
I know.
parents, yeah, they don't
And
know.
that these are their
They're in,
kids, not the
yeah,
parents' kids.
yeah, and they want to go ahead and hide that they're taking hormone blockers so
Right.
that they could find their true selves, which is
Right.
really weird. So
But
Let's get,
they believe this stuff, Barry.
yeah,
They
I
seem
know.
to. They don't see like we. I see it as well. This is an attack, but they actually believe
And
this
they're not
stuff.
teaching anything worthwhile. It's
So
just like the food industry. They're giving it brains junk food instead of nourishing information.
here's something interesting too, because the DNA of how they're trying to change our kids is the same all across the nation, right? Critical race theory, we got to be very, very conscious of what color we are and how all these different colored people have somehow oppressed me and I'm a victim. They trying to gender dysphoria. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? Or am I 72 other things that I could be? I mean, talk about, I think about when I was in an adolescent phase and how hormones flying around in my body. I didn't know who I was. I'm
Of
trying to
course
find
not.
out. And meanwhile, a person of authority preaching to you these types of
Okay, your
messages.
mic is just really bad. I'm gonna pause for.
How about now?
So let's just get that back on track. You're having a little bit of problems with the mic, but we're definitely talking about the failing of the teachers and the inability to teach critical thinking. And critical thinking is what is absolutely needed today to get us out of the problems that we've been in. See, the thing is that, and this is what the point I want to get to with our, because I want to get to the point that I'm truly excited about the opportunities in education right now that have to come about with the changes in technology and the awareness that has come about in during these changes. And even social media only started for the most part around 2012. That is really recent. And with that and all the horrors of social media, I mean, we definitely talk about those, but with the internet and social media and podcasts in particular come about, long form media where people can't hide behind 7-minute sound bites anymore. They have to explain themselves. This is, I'm going to go all over the place here now, but this is a problem that the Democratic Party had recently found themselves in when Kamala Harris was trying to run for president, and she wouldn't go on long form podcasts because she didn't know how to explain her policies. Jordan Peterson can't get Democrats to come on his long form podcast. Neither can Lex freaking Friedman, who is the
Yeah.
nicest, most fair guy on the planet, but he can't get Democrats to come
Yeah.
on and explain their policies because he's going to have a thorough, intelligent conversation about them that has not been holding up, that only hold up in sound bites. You
Well,
know,
it's
after you get
interesting.
over an hour to an hour and a half, you better be able to think on your feet. The only person I think that could do it off the top of my head in the Democratic Party, there's more, but off the top of my head is Harold Ford Jr. But he's going to go and throw half of the Democratic Party under the bus for the failings as he's having an intelligent conversation.
I think it's really interesting that Gavin Newsom has a podcast right now, and the things that he's doing on his podcast
Trying to do.
are illuminating, right? Because he's bringing on
Charlie Kirk.
conservatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he's. I mean, I gotta respect that he's trying to do that, but
Trying.
he's not
He's
coming off well
failing.
at all.
All
And
right.
here's another thing Anne Marie always brings this up is how he's using his hands all the time and moving
Uh-huh.
his hands all around. I'm telling you, when people do that and they're always moving around like
Diversion.
that, well, it's hard to trust them, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Sleight of
know what it
hand.
is. Yeah, what are you doing over there with all of those? It seems like you're trying to distract me
It's a magic
from
trick.
what's really. Yeah, it does seem like it's a magic
It's a
trick,
distraction.
and he's doing that in his podcast too. And I think he's getting torn up over there. Somebody was telling me when he had what's the guy that was running with Kamala or Kamala
Walls.
the
Not to
Walls.
be confused with
He was on
Waltz,
that
who we
show.
will be talking about. Yes, and I heard, and in particular, you froze up. In particular, what I heard from Walls was him playing tough guy, saying that he could take on anybody in the Republican Party, which I just found like, holy crap, you really said that. In a party that hates, that talks about toxic masculinity, Walls now wants to say that he could take anybody on in the Republican
Yeah.
Party.
I'm afraid.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
When I first saw him, I was really intimidated that he might beat me up.
Dude, when I first saw him, I watched the debate well, it was with Vance. The only reason I continue watching, because, and I mean this, I thought one, he was either going to pee himself on stage or he was going to run off stage.
Oh, he was terrible. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
terrible. I remember the thing he called himself. It was, oh, I could be a knucklehead sometimes. And I don't
Self
know.
deprecating. That's really going to
Whenever I
work.
see him now, I think, what a knucklehead.
Yeah, this will really work. I want to get back to the point about the Department of Education and where we can go. So we've had my point to like the podcast with the long form. Now we have to be authentic because sound bites aren't working anymore. And
Right.
this is what I hate when I try to have a serious conversation about the problems in this country that someone that has Trump derangement syndrome and all they can do is talk in Trump sound bites. It's like, hey man, I wanted to talk about this issue. I don't want to hear about how you heard that Trump is responsible for it. I don't
Isn't
want to
that
talk about
interesting?
Trump.
Wait, hold on. This whole thing about Trump derangement syndrome. We were talking about demons earlier, but it does seem like there's a common thing. We talk about alcoholism and how there's a common thing because this Trump derangement syndrome almost seems like I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's like there's no logic there. It's all emotions. When you talk to somebody that has this, they start yelling.
Definitely get
And
emotion.
the things that they're yelling usually don't make a lot of sense either. Like, for instance, the whole thing around there were good people on both sides with that thing that happened in Virginia. People really believed that Trump was saying that the KKK guys that were there were good guys. But just before he said there are good people on both sides, he condemned
Uh-huh.
white supremacy and the
Uh-huh.
white supremacists.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's clearly there. But I've had these
Because
conversations
people
with people
want to
about that,
believe that.
and
They
they
want to
get
believe the lies of
so
the dossier.
but they become so overwhelmingly emotional. They're spitting. Their faces contort. It's like they turn into different people all of a sudden.
Well,
Like they
okay.
turn into a snake that wants to bite you.
But even people that control their emotions have been beyond that. They know they got sucked into that. Now it's like, okay, I'm not going to make a fool of myself.
It
Emotion.
seems,
But they will
yes,
shut down. They won't listen. They will
it
shut down.
does. Look around our politics. There seems like there's a thing there,
I can tell
right?
you what that thing is, and we'll come back to the demon thing, which we are weaving in and
I
out of
know
every.
it's okay.
It is okay. The addiction, because this is like the food industry with the
Right.
addictive additives, the hatred. Hate is addictive, man,
I hear you.
and that's what it's working off of Trump hate.
Do you remember that Star Trek episode? It was called The Entity. I think about this all the time when we're
I
dealing
don't,
with
but you
politics.
remember every
Okay,
Star Trek episode.
here's what happens is that they're having a summit with the Klingons on the Enterprise, and everything seems to be working great, but then suddenly they just start to become very emotional and agitated, and every time they get together, it turns like the Klingons are pulling swords out, and they're like, wanting to fight each other all the time. And what was happening was there was an alien called the Entity that would come into the room, and it caused discord and strife between everybody, and it made them want to fight. So, but they didn't know that this entity was there. They'd get together, hey, how you doing, Joe? Hey, what's going on? And then suddenly, like, oh, I want to fight you. And it was because the entity was coming into the room. Well, at the end of the show, they realized it was like this sparkly thing up in the corner, how they would do their lame graphics that they had and everything.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they saw it in the room, and they united and they turned against that thing. It was getting energy off of them being
Oh,
agitated. So they
whoa.
stopped being agitated and they told it to leave, and it had to go. And
Wow,
see,
that
this
plays
is
into everything we're talking about right
that's
here.
exactly right. This is exactly what I see happening here in our country, especially since our country, by and large, has turned their back on God. Well, now what's going to fill that void is these entities, right? And now
Our climate change.
we get together with our friends and the entity shows up and pretty soon we're screaming at each other. I was on my back porch a couple of months ago with Anne Marie at night and there was a party happening across the lake and it sounded like everybody was having fun. And then suddenly two people started having an argument about politics
Oh yeah.
and they were screaming
Oh
like
my
they
God.
were like and they sounded like they were going to fight and then one of them said something like this. Oh, that's real good. Picking on a 70-year-old man. Like they sounded like
The victim?
teenagers, and all of a sudden the one
Oh,
guy says he's 70, and the other guy yells in this very emotional voice, I'm 60. And
oh
that's
my
the
God.
craziest thing. These grown, mature men, it sounds like the entity showed up. And they
See?
were yelling the most god awful, debased things at each
Uh-huh.
other. And
That's
yet they're
that's the addiction of
neighbors.
hate. That's the addiction of hate. And
And where
when
does
you
hate come from? And that's what I'm talking
and
back to
that's
that
fine.
demonic thing.
And
Yeah.
this is my point. We can go back to Glenn Livingston, Dr. Glenn Livingston's kind of personifying his demon as I should anamorphizing as a pig, so that
Hmm.
he can look at it directly and say, "Pig, I don't listen to pigs on Tuesdays." That's how he started, small step at a time. I do not listen to pig on Tuesdays, and well, my point is too is that I find it because of my demons. My demons come in the form of just hijacking me during the middle of a day with what do you call that? Road rage or whatever. Certain
Oh,
things I
yeah.
could see things happening. It's like, are you kidding me? You really just did that. I mean, what are the chances of things going this way at this time? I see them as demons messing with me during a day. That's me. We see things differently. If it's alcohol, if it's
I can
sex,
see
if it's
that too. I agree with
whatever,
you.
whatever your demons are, I
Yeah.
think whether it's true or not, I think that there's a very big advantage in personifying them into them. But I would argue it does seem like that there is an intelligence behind the negative things that affect us. And let's get back to the hate. And I do see the addictive qualities of hate. And boy, you could just usher in every kind of distraction in on that hate wagon. And then you could just pull all of that money right out of the country while people are arguing about
I
it.
know. And look at how hate is so tied to the emotional part of your brain too. And back to what we were talking about. It's easy to manipulate people when
Well,
they're
you
in that
know,
kind of
all
state.
you have to do, this is the biggest trick that's been played on us for a couple decades now, back to the Department of Education being taken over. But you dehumanize people. That's all there is to it. Call everything and everybody a Nazi. Now you can hate them. You should hate them. If you don't hate them, you're going to be hated.
Yeah, you're the Nazi, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's where we're at.
that's how it's working.
Yeah.
We should probably get to the signal thing.
Oh, wait, man. I didn't even talk about the good stuff about the Department of Education.
What?
Um, and that is just the opportunities for 50 different states
To
now self
compete.
funded to compete and to come up in an age of the internet and AI. This is not the
It's a
19th
huge thing.
century, man.
Yeah.
Right. This is the 21st century. There probably should be like we haven't talked about it in a long time. Jordan Peterson started it, and there's been a few people that have started online universities where you have the best of the best creating a subject matter, creating courses that can teach you rather than some fly by night unhappy person who's getting paid, 50 grand a year or whatever, unhappy about that, hates his life, and teaching your kids in a very negative way. And the people, I'm sorry, the people that are getting squashed down, that are actually love their jobs and are teaching inspiring things, but it's inconsistent. And I'm just saying that there's the opportunity now where we can harness the best of the best things. You can
Yeah,
ask me, well, what is the best way to do it? I don't know yet, but I can name a whole bunch of things that should be tried, and they're going to be tried. And you're going to find somebody go from worst to first. They're
I
going to be
agree.
like, this state, this city, this region ranked the worst in education for decades and decades. And now they're ranked number one. How'd they do it?
Boy, you're saying a mouthful right there because it all comes down to this competition, and
Always,
that's
that's
human
the
nature.
best part of capitalism.
What they did was they took that. That's right. Capitalism is based on our human nature
Being
and and
rewarded
and
for
and being able to really capitalize on the things about our human nature. But when you put together a tenure system where, yeah, I've worked here for this amount of time now, I can't be fired.
yeah.
You're taking away
Tenure
the
has a good side
competition
too,
piece.
though,
Well,
where
sure,
somebody's
but
supposed to be able to freely think and express it, finally.
and but at the same time it introduces this ability for you to become corrupt and
That's
then
the other
corrupt your
side.
children. and
Exactly.
and and by the way, they think that the children in their class are their children now, not the parents'
We
children. That
touched
is
on that.
wrong.
Uh-huh.
But this whole thing where you take competition out, the Department of Education national takes that away because now that's just one entity. But what you're saying is that these states can now compete against each other.
Exactly. And
And
find the
that and we
best
can,
models.
yeah, and that's where
Another
the
thing.
the
Well,
merit system works.
that's
That's
exactly
human
right.
nature.
That's exactly right. And then to reward the people that are teaching with inspiration.
Yes,
Everybody will
exactly.
be inspired. Here's another thing. AI can help us with gamifying learning.
I
And
love that idea.
absolutely. I don't know how to talk about it much more than that, but what I know is all kids are addicted to video games. Why? Because they like the challenge of getting to the next level. And so let's do part of that. Let's don't get crazy and think that I want to turn education into social media and video games. No, but pieces of it. Pieces of it
I
here
love
and
what
there.
you're saying.
Take
You,
the
you know what you're
best.
reminding me of is I hated math in
Me
school, but
too, man. Me too.
in fifth grade, we had this concept called math football. And it's kind of crazy thing, but it was really cool. So each class became a team. We were the Oakland Raiders, and so we competed against every other class in these math competitions. And we'd get together, and it would be like two people would get up, like one class would be on the one side and the other class on the other side, and then two people would get up and they'd put a math equation up there, and the person that could figure it out the fastest scored a touchdown for their team. And so now it was this competition, which
That's
made math
cool.
totally different. And plus, I love football and I want to win. And so then it was just like studying math was like playing
That's
football,
very cool.
and it was awesome. It
That's
was
very
probably the
cool.
best math experience I ever had.
I love all of that. So, moral to the story. Oh, so I just want to put a cap on it with saying, so even our generations, we've had a couple generations that have been failed. We were on the tail end. We were coming out of this as our system was getting corrupted. We didn't see people talking about pronouns in safe spaces. It was right behind us. It was in our wake. But even these people who have been failed are going to have this future, this kind of current. It's already kind of started in many ways, but we're going to have this educational stuff available to us. It's going to be fun. It's going to be inspiring, and it's going to change this country for the
That's
bring
so
us back.
positive, Barry. I
It's
love what you're
really
saying.
inspiring. It's
I did,
true though.
I'm more excited than I was before about this whole thing. So yeah, I
I'm
love your
hugely.
take.
And
Love your
let's
take.
talk about it again. But right now, we got to move on to other things like the Department of. Okay, this ties into the Department of Defense, who has failed 6 straight years of audits since 2018. They can only verify 39% of their $3.8 trillion in assets, meaning billions are untraceable. Estimated $2.3 trillion unaccounted for, going as far back as the early 2000s. It's a mess in every way. So we got Doge
Wow.
coming out there trying to correct everything. I don't care if it's the Department of Education. I don't care if it's the. Do you remember hearing about just a few weeks back, few months back, about California trying to correct all their homeless problem by giving it $14 billion? I think it was $14 billion.
Oh my
They
God.
had
That's
nothing
it.
to show for it. Nobody knows where the money went.
Yes.
Dude, the smallest company out there that anybody that's getting any kind of funding, and I don't care if you're a nonprofit or whatever, you got to show an annual report on where your money went. Every
Right.
company does. We pay taxes. We have to show where our money went. How does this happen? How does the Department of Defense not have a website that anybody can go on and see where the money is going?
Right.
Same
And
with
we've talked
every
about how the
place.
globalists are utilizing the military industrial complex like their piggy
For
bank.
sure. Everything's a
And
money
so
laundering
this is
scheme.
all coming from it. Hey, Barry, I don't know if you recall this, but back in 2001, it was September 10th, 2001. Sound familiar? The next day was the September 11th. But on September 10th, Rumsfeld, who is in charge of the Defense Department, says there's like $1.7 trillion that's missing from the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And it was this big, huge, oh my God.
Yeah.
The next day, it was
9/11.
erased from the news. Nobody even remembers that he said that. And
Yeah.
so this has been going on for a long time, is my point. You
Mhm.
brought it back to the early 2000s, but before then,
Oh,
they
yeah.
were short 1.7 trillion or something
That's a
crazy like
military
that.
industrial complex.
There it
And people
is.
are worried about Musk having too much power.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Boy, they're playing right into the game.
They really are.
So here's a positive is my point is with the technology and the change in culture as a result, the awareness that we've been awakening. We've been awakening from woke. We've been awakening, which was another diversionary
Yeah.
tactic.
Right.
Still trying, and
Seems devilish to me.
yeah. We're tying it all back together. And so what I wanted to make the point that today with our technology, everything, everything should be especially anything the government touches, should be able to go to a website and see where our tax dollars are going.
I agree with you on that. And then when it comes to the military, I see where there could be things that, might be classified, but we should, it's all about we the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been taken away from us where, doors have been closed to us and it's like, no, we can't share that. No, you have to share everything because
Yep.
you work for us, not the other
Yeah,
way
we got to
around.
reclaim the country,
Yeah,
right?
we really do. We really
Yeah,
do.
so we have the ability to, and it's really the internet and it's really these podcasts that have enabled us to do that. But we need to get our media back, and if
We do.
it's probably this new form. It's going to be the smart and ambitious people, but it also needs to be rewarded because there's us people like us. I mean, there's a trailblazers out there that are actually making some money at it, but they're very, very few that can make
Right.
money doing this to
That's
make a
true.
living. But the rest of us are doing it because, like us, man, it's the right thing to do
Yeah, we
and is
love our
needed.
country, we love our neighbors, we love our family, and that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the media needs to change. It needs to be incentivized so that we have people that who, when they get curious, where are our tax dollars going? We can go online, find out if we dig hard enough, and then ask the right questions. Because first of all, there's all these things that the Freedom of Information Act has to be real. Like when we ask for JFK files, we really need them. When we ask for Epstein files, we really need them. We really need access to everything that we ask for. So there's a lot of things that are happening in this country with this presidency. We this kind of like got kicked off. This presidency got kicked off with a lot of hoopla and a lot of promises, a hell of a lot of promises. None of them have come to fruition yet. But I think what we're finding, and we better learn to take this for heart, start to talk about this. We're finding that we're hit up against this brick wall. It's said all the time, got to throw this on you because you'll know how to talk about this more than me, that our country is great because nobody can come in here like a dictator and shake it up too much in one presidency, that the wheels turn so slowly and have to go through so many checks and balances to prevent that from happening. I think that that's in a large part what's happening now with the Trump administration. We had a lot of big promises, all the files that were supposed to be divulged, and a lot of people that were supposed to be held accountable. Nobody's been held accountable. I'm going to say that every episode. I want people arrested. I
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
for sure. We need to clean up the corruption.
Yeah, you're making some great points here, and I think that I'll disagree a little bit here and say I have actually seen progress on these promises, actually quite a bit of progress, but it's frustrating because there are people that should be locked up right now, and I don't know why that's taking so long. But there are some examples, like for instance, the border, which was open like a sieve, and now
Uh
we've got
huh.
the lowest crossings really in history. That happened pretty quickly.
That's a
We're
good point. I just want to say Donald Trump had a great line about that. And I wish I had it right now, but he said, well, it turns out we didn't need to pass all kinds of new legislation. He
right. Just
paused,
needed a new president.
just
Yep.
needed a new president.
Yeah, and then you take a look at the deportations that are happening. Just last night, they caught the leader of Tren de Agua and in
I
Virginia.
didn't know
Um,
that.
but here's the thing: we sent like hundreds of them down to El Salvador last week, and we've got this rogue judge, federal judge, Boasberg, I think
Yeah.
is his name,
Yeah, you got it.
that put the kibosh on that whole thing. And he's the same guy now that's involved in the Signal debacle. And he's now demanding all of the transcripts for Signal. And coincidentally, he got that case too. How did
Which
that
is very,
happen?
very
And
unusual.
he's
Yes.
saying that there's this randomized system that just,
Happens to keep
coincidentally
coming
he
up
got
black.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But just like in New York, how that was happening with Alvin Bragg, too.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
have all these cases? It's a corrupt system. Our third branch of government is in trouble. By the way, our founders in the Federalist Papers named that third branch as the most concerning and the most dangerous. Why? Because they can launch lawfare and destroy the country. That's exactly what's happening right now. These people are going outside of the Constitution, though. Boasberg doesn't have any authority when it comes to this whole thing with the deportations and how in the hell did he get the case regarding Signal? Signal's a debacle. I agree, but
It's an
how'd that guy get
embarrassing
this?
debacle. No, I totally agree. I still am not feeling all that great about the deportations to El Salvador without due process. And you said
Yeah,
last week, well, they're not Americans.
they
Still,
don't. You don't get
dude.
due process when you're not an American.
Yeah, but what about the innocent people that got caught up into the rape and torture they're going to endure for the rest of their lives in an El Salvadorian prison?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't think those guys are innocent. I think they got them. They got them where they
You
need to
think
be.
that
But
without due process, no innocent people are involved in, that got swept
here's
up
what
in
I
it?
think is that they shouldn't have crossed over the border, and now they're in a situation where they're not going to get due process. That's what I'm saying. Is that
That's not good
unfortunately,
enough for me. As an American that believes in American values, I think that's sick. And we're going to end up, historically, we'll hear all the stories of really well intentioned, family oriented people that just wanted a better life, just got raped and tortured for the rest of their lives in an El Salvador prison. And that's not good.
it's
That's
not
not good.
good. No, I don't. I don't like that either. But due process is something that you don't deserve. Everybody doesn't deserve it. We get due process because we live here, we pay taxes, we abide by the American laws. That's why we get due process. When you go to another country, Barry, and break the law, you will not get due process.
Yeah, this is
It doesn't
America,
work
though.
that
We're not
way.
another country. We're America. I'm not good with that.
The
I'm just not good with it.
sustainability of
Now, here's
providing
what I
due
could see that we could appease all sides a bit because I'm just saying there's two sides of this. That judge that's just trying to impede Trump and all the corruption there, you're totally spot on. Okay, so now with if just getting all the gangs out of here is like the immediate because of the debacle that was open borders, not just open borders, but it paying people to come over here, literally is what we were doing. And hundreds of thousands of children missing into sex slavery, and God knows they're dead and all the other things. The horrors are just unspeakable. So all these people are deported. Now, how about in retrospect, there's an effort to try to sift through people that may be okay, but they've already went through sheer hell. but to try to get some of the innocents out of there. Maybe that's something.
I don't know if that's going to happen. My thing is this is that the federal government is in charge of protecting our borders. They're not supposed to be letting everybody just come in through the borders. That is a dereliction of their duty that they owe to the American citizens. Now that they let all of those people in there, the taxpayers are not we the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for their due process after they crapped all over our laws coming in here.
But they're
Because
not the
by the
ones
way,
responsible for that. Now, I wish that we
the
would go
people they're
so
not the
far
ones responsible
as
for coming over the border. Is that what you
for the open borders and the incentivization of them coming over. My point is that there's easily 1,000 people if you go through the funnel, starting at Joe Biden and the deep state people that filter on through that. If we could identify them, I would like all of their assets seized, taken, and those people should be put in an El Salvador prison.
Okay, so now you're talking about where the responsibility lies, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Look, we are all responsible for our own actions. I'm not saying that these people coming across the border aren't responsible for their own actions. They knew they were breaking the law coming over, but they also knew that Joe Biden was encouraging them to come over.
Mhm.
And so, who has the greater crime here? And I would say that I think you're right. People that incented those people to come across and now their lives are in harm's way. Those people
That's
are
evil right
responsible
there.
for that.
That
That's
whole
exactly
system.
right.
Yeah.
They set those people up for a dark, dark
And I'll say
situation. But
again,
should the American taxpayers be punished for that? I don't think that they should. But go ahead.
well, that's why I said I think that these people should be. Oh, my God, I think the biggest effort that should be undergone right now is to get all of these thousands of corrupt people out of our system, strip them of the assets that they got. Look at Nancy Pelosi with what they got $280 million off the tax by bilking it from the American system, insider trading and all that.
You're right.
Take it back. All of
I
these
agree.
people, take
I
it
agree.
back.
It's criminal what they've
Put it
done.
right towards our debt. Let's get out of this and let's punish them so it never happens again.
Yeah.
I had a bigger point. I forgot what it
Go
was.
ahead.
No, I
Well,
forgot what it was.
While you're thinking about it, I just think, one of the things to think about with due process is that if you provide due process for those millions of people that came across, then it's going to take due process into a place where it's going to gum up our systems. It's going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars, and it's going to be a place. It's going to cause the American citizen to suffer and not get due process because now we've overloaded the system with people that don't deserve due process. And we're the ones that have paid our tax dollars for all of our lives. So why should we suffer because of what other people did to our country? I think that's where the problem is we don't live in utopia where we can just say, yep, we're Americans and we want to do that. We do want to be able to provide this, but then there's this whole thing of, is it sustainable? Can we afford it? We can't. We really can't. We're just about broke right now, so we can't afford these things is really what the big problem is. And who should pay for this? I think a lot of the countries that emptied out their prisons like Venezuela and sent them over here owe us some compensation for what they did on purpose to us.
No, I totally agree with that. I just saw something, got my eye in my notes. A note that chat gave me when I was doing research on this, that it says estimated $2.3 trillion unaccounted for, goes back as early as the early 2000s, famously mentioned by the then Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, on September 10th, 2001. In parentheses, it says, yes, that date.
Now,
Chat has a sense of humor. I mean, it really does with me. It said that just the way you just said it, but it was 2.3 trillion. You said, as I recall, 1.7.
Yeah. Well, it was a
It keeps
rounding error.
getting worse. Here's how bad it
This
is.
deal keeps getting worse.
It does because we keep giving Congress money for them anyway. The
Keep
DoD
doing it.
receives over $850 billion a year and is projected to cross $1 trillion a year soon with no real accountability in sight. What the hell are
Well,
we doing?
well, you know, it's something I've been thinking about a lot, Barry, is the fact that we, the people, allowed all these things to happen.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
And
this is our
we
fault
are
that this is happening.
distracted as we've been talking about every
Yeah,
bit of the way.
we the people need to stand up. Like this is why we voted for Trump, and take all that back. And these federal judges are trying to stop that from happening because
Uh-huh.
they've got a stake in this whole thing, but it's
Uh-huh.
not constitutional. And so we have to take it back. Otherwise, our country goes away. We won't have this country. And this is the last chance for freedom in the world. You see what's happening in
Yeah.
the world right now. All the Western countries have lost their freedom. There's no freedom of speech anymore in England or Scotland or Ireland or anywhere in Europe
That's a
any longer.
fact. And you
And
know how they get away with that? They call it hate speech. Oh, it
yeah,
sounds
that's
pretty. Who
exactly right.
wants it? Oh, you're for hate speech? Well, hate speech is every damn thing that you disagree with.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's such a deception when you talk about these kinds of things that are coming from the dark side, as we talked about before. He's the master of manipulation on speech, and he changes definitions in order to fit his agenda. That's Satan. It's interesting what we're dealing with. We are definitely, whether you believe in Satan and God, you got to believe that there is a fight between good and evil that's happening, that's
There is.
showing up everywhere.
There is. Because we're running low on time, I wanted to just about that signal link. It was horribly embarrassing. Just a brief overview. Our top, first of all, these were the leaders, the absolute pinnacle of
How
our
disappointing.
intelligence
Yes.
community. That is, oh my God, it's unforgivable. So it includes National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and
Right.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Used the Signal messaging app to discuss sensitive military operations against Houthi militants in Yemen. Yemen, once again, we're bombing the poorest nation in the Middle East. I feel sorry for the innocent people over there. Obviously, the Houthis are not, and it's also looking like a proxy to tweak Iran, which is kind of doing a favor for Israel, and it's knocking on the door of World War III. An accidental inclusion of Trump hating the Atlantic journalist Jeffrey Goldberg in the group chat. How did this guy get
Get
included
into
on
the
this?
group chat, right? Like, how do you make that mistake?
What do you think
I
of
don't
Michael
understand.
Waltz? I don't
I don't have an
I haven't
opinion
heard
yet.
good things about him. He was the first appointed, as I recall, under the Bush administration.
I don't have an opinion on him.
I hear
However,
he's kind of a Trump, anti-Trump operative.
I don't know. All I know is
He's
this
buddies with Goldberg.
is he? I did
I don't.
not know
I don't
that.
know if I should say buddies, but they definitely have had relations, and I think
Okay.
that this he came on there as a result. As a result, uh, Goldberg came on to that conversation as a result of Waltz. It seems.
I think overall that the administration, the knee jerk reaction should have been mea culpa. We're going to
Uh-huh.
correct this, and yes, that can't happen. We can't do this. The whole defense of is it classified information or not? Well, they said it's not, but when I heard the information, it sounded like information that if I were the enemy, I
Should
would
have
want to
been.
have that information, right?
Yes.
Oh, there's planes are coming to bomb our country. Get ready, scramble jets. Like that's what I would do with that. So the fact that they're saying it's not confidential information, I tell you what, if it was the Biden administration that did this, I would have been rip roaring mad. And as I take a look at
They'd
this,
never live
it's
it down.
about national security, and we need to have national security. They made a fatal flaw, and now they're trying to say, well, the mission went off without a flaw. Well, did it?
Right.
Okay, maybe you accomplished your military objective, but effectively the enemy got the message. Whether it's an enemy to the Trump administration
Uh-huh.
or an enemy overseas, it's still an enemy to your plan. And he dumped all the information out there. And I think there should be some pretty serious repercussions for something like this. It's
You
very
would think.
disappointing when you take a look at this team, the all-star team that Trump put around them, and they make a
They just
mistake
pulled a
like this.
Hillary.
Yeah, they really did. I would say the Hillary thing was probably more egregious just because it was a consistent thing that was happening, and then she destroyed the evidence with a hammer,
Yeah,
and
there's
she
that.
bleached everything.
Yeah.
I think that was worse, but I think this needs to be nipped in the bud right away. Why are they using Signal? That's really my
That's a
question.
really
Is
good question.
you're
When they
using a
have
consumer,
proprietary
yeah,
technology that
you're
they're
using a
supposed to be using.
consumer app.
Yeah, that's
We all
ridiculous,
know
man.
that these apps are compromised.
That's
So,
so ridiculous.
by the way, it's not just these guys that were using it. I mean, they've been using Signal. The Biden administration was using it too. But
Yeah.
here's the problem with using these kind of apps, just like Hillary, is that it smacks of a potential shadow government because now you can destroy the evidence after you put it out there. You don't have it for the National Archives any longer. So
Right.
why it should be illegal to be using this is about, again, back to we the people. We the people should have access to this information. And if you do it on these third-party apps, we won't have access to it. And so
God.
that's to me more egregious than they made the mistake. The fact that they're using a third-party app when they have supposedly they have secured networks that they should be using, that's what they need to be used because after the fact, these things all go into the National Archives.
Well, you might have hit on a very important point right there. Is that this way there's just deniability when once it's gone
That's
into
right.
the ether.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. That okay. Another big, huge point that should never be lost is this was what we didn't want to see in the Trump administration. All this was a shifting, once again, just another shift of the military industrial complex's demand for money into a different war.
Well,
But they're still getting it.
The Houthis that have been attacking us. I mean, there's been all these
Yeah, yeah,
shipments
yeah.
going
That's
through
exactly the
the
smokescreen. But at the
straits.
end of the day, you're going to see that the military industrial complex is going to get their same amount of money that they demand.
I, I can't deny that. I
Right.
can't deny that. And it seems like these players, like I mean, look, the Houthis are Iran. That's who the Houthis are. It's a proxy to Iran. So just same with Hamas, same with Hezbollah. They're financed by Iran. That's who our war really is against right now. Unfortunately, the Iranians took over Yemen. They've been there a long time. The Houthis,
Mm-hmm.
they crucify people. How
Mm-hmm.
barbaric! They've had a war with the Sunnis over in Saudi Arabia. That's why they're in Yemen. It's right there on the border. They've been battling the Saudis. This goes back centuries, by the way. The Sunnis versus the Shiites. They hate each other. Between those two Muslim factions, they've killed more Muslims than they've killed anybody else. They got a history here, and we're getting caught up in the middle of this whole thing. And to your point, is it because the military industrial complex is salivating over this whole situation? And
Absolutely.
by the way, if we start going against all these guys, it is World War III. That part of the world is the most sensitive part of the world, and it has been for a long time. You blow that place up, everybody gets dragged into it. And
Mm-hmm.
do we call that Armageddon? Maybe.
Yeah,
We're really looking at some serious stuff over here. And
I,
by the way, they should stop using Signal.
yeah. It's just like I was saying before. All this military spending, it should be on a website. I
I
understand
agree.
there's going to be a degree of, well, we're developing top secret this. Well, you're using that excuse for it went way out of
To deceive
control
us.
a
Yeah,
long time ago.
I agreed,
With
Barry.
that, do you think we should be starting to wind up here? I
We
think,
need
yeah.
to. Yeah, yeah.
All right. I want to wind up with a really great article that you're going to like. And I will, in fact, share the link to it so you guys can see the rest of it. This is about 33 powerful truths from a
I love that.
73-year-old man that will change your perspective. It's just 73 gems this guy wrote, and it's done quite well. I will be honest with you that most of them are almost the cliches that we've heard before, but many of them are actually extremely insightful.
I like this one. What you think of me is none of my business.
Yep.
And I
Oh, I know.
love
I
that.
love that one. What you think of me is none of my business. That reminds me of like some other gems I've heard in years gone by that I try to remember and even repeat upon occasion. And that is, it's nobody else's business what you do for a living or what your relationship is like. If you take those two to heart, you can live a happy life.
Well, and with that first one, we're so worried about what everybody else thinks about us.
Mhm.
It's so liberating when you don't feel that any longer.
He says
You
in
just be
here,
yourself.
He says in here, oh, evolution of what people think. Everyone's heard this before, I think, but we should all live by it. At 23, I worried about what people thought of me. At 43, I realized they weren't thinking of me at all. At 73, I simply don't care. Adopt that one early.
Right
Easier to
on.
say than it is, but
No,
but
this is
you need to
says in
hear
the
it.
Bible, fear of man is a snare. See, we just said snare earlier. You
Uh-huh.
know what a snare is. You get your foot caught in that little trap, you can't get out. That's the fear of man and what other people think. It's a trap. It's a
It is.
trap.
It is
And
for sure.
look at what the woke thing did is they
Cancel
made
culture
everybody afraid
of
of what
being
everybody else was
ostracized.
thinking.
You will be
Exactly.
ostracized from the group. Now they've
And
done
look
it
how
to the
that
point there's
imprisoned
not much of
everybody.
the group left.
Yes, and that imprisoned people in their minds.
Hmm.
It's a powerful dark force. Yes, I love what this guy
Gratitude
is
is
saying.
a cheat sheet for happiness. It's very true. Every day I am feeling
Oh, it's so
gratitude,
positive.
in spite of the fact that I may want to try and look for better things here or there. I still am very grateful for what I have currently.
Barry, I'm so glad you pulled that one out. I had this great meeting with a client this week, and she was talking about a person that she met. She said, I love this guy because he's so grateful. He's just grateful for
Oh,
everything. You could just feel his
yeah.
gratefulness. She was drawn to this guy because it was like his gratefulness was like a magnet.
And
And
you
look at
know
what
what
this guy
that,
is saying.
like magnets that are in reverse polarity, that is the
Yes.
opposite of hatred that we talk so much about today.
Ah, so nice.
Equally, is it as addictive? I don't know, but you can't be grateful and hateful at the same time.
Oh,
You
that was,
can't
you got to
be,
write that down, Barry.
dude,
You
you
can't
can't
be
be
grateful and
grateful
hateful.
and in anxiety at the
No,
same time.
gratefulness over blessings in your life, focusing on the blessings like that. I don't wake up in a good mood and I force myself to think about my blessings and then I get out of that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big tip right there, man. Because gratefulness, it's just like this guy is saying. It's the gasoline. I mean, he's got something about hope in here. Like you can endure anything if there's hope.
Hope.
Hope
Hope
and
is like,
gratefulness go together.
dude, it's like the Jews in the concentration camps. They were always the guards were always trying to extinguish hope in them. Hope is the only thing that makes life worth living when you have so little. But if you
I
have
talked
hope for a better day, you will go on.
I talked to a guy, and he was a homeless guy. He's like a philosopher. He called himself the Godfather of Love. And he spent a bunch of time in jail for murder.
Oh
Somebody
my
raped his
God.
sister, and he shot the guy in the head.
Wow.
And he spent time in prison. And he says this to me. He said, "Merle, I found out that they could take everything away from me except for one thing." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "The love of Jesus Christ. They could never take that away from me." And this man, with just the love and gratefulness, that's what
Yeah.
attracted me to him.
Hmm.
That's how I had that conversation with him. Um, if you want to change the world, to me, these are the gems.
Yeah.
It doesn't just change you, it changes everything around you.
That's true. That's true. When we try to do a little bit better for ourselves, we're emanating. We are energy that emanates off of us. So, try to have it be for the better. I know that Dr. Wayne Dyer always talked about we could raise the consciousness, the collective consciousness of the human race, if something like just 10% of us raise our own consciousness.
Right on. I love that.
It's a good place to stop, huh?
Barry, that was fantastic. So uplifting. And all of it, I mean, today it was like everything just came full circle. Once again,
Everything intertwined.
really did. It's so
Yeah.
cool. What a great conversation we had today.
Yeah, it really was. We didn't have many shares, but I don't think we needed it,
Hey,
really.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope people go and see those movies that I said earlier,
Yeah, yeah.
Wicked and also The Chosen season 5. It's going to come out on Prime in June. So if you don't
Uh,
catch it at the theater, you'll see it on Prime.
okay, okay. And stay tuned for Mark's AI tip, his latest one. He's always expanding our minds with that. And guys, please go to over50startingover.com and sign up for our email list. Get this to your email box as it happens, as it drops. We would love to hear your thoughts. Please respond to all the crazy things that we say. Easiest way would be on our over50startingover.com site, or maybe easier is our YouTube channel, Over 50 Starting Over.
We
All
read
right.
all of them and we love
Yeah,
it when you interact with us. We
we
will
absolutely do.
respond to you as well.
We certainly will. All right. With that, have a great weekend. See you all.
Hey there, over 50 starting over friends. Mark Tennant back with you with your AI tip of the week. This week, adding clarity to your prompts for better results and better output. So, as I always say, just talk to the AI. Just have that conversation with it. I sure hope you're talking to ChatGPT. So let's go back to November of 2022. That's when I started using ChatGPT. I had early access, or access when it first came out. And after a while, I started fighting with it because my responses were starting to not be good at all. Why was that? I think it was because the AI was starting to learn my tone and it wasn't getting any better with its responses. They were starting to wane, to be frank. So how did I change that? By talking to the AI in a natural tone of voice. Also, I started adding clarity to my prompts. What do I mean by that? I had ChatGPT start asking me clarifying questions. Yep, I said, ask me questions if you don't understand my prompt, or for better results, ask me questions, something like that. ChatGPT, as I've always said, have that conversation with you because it's like talking to another person, and it's much better now than it was in November of 2022. As a matter of fact, it's night and day, to be honest with you. So let's open up ChatGPT and start a new chat. So I came up with this. You can come up with your own and you can see the results. But I came up with this prompt that said, write a LinkedIn post that promotes a new product for a small business. The post should be engaging and encourage potential customers to learn more. And not bad. This is actually a pretty decent template for such a LinkedIn post, or really a sales page on a website. It has placeholders. It doesn't know the target audience. It doesn't know the product, and it really doesn't know that much at all. But it's a good start. However, when I took that same prompt and added this to the end, before writing, ask me any clarifying questions to better understand the product, target audience, and the desired tone. And here are the questions it asked me. Who's the target audience? What is the desired tone? What is the product? What problem does it solve? So as you can see at the bottom, I answered all of those questions. And look at this response. Now, to me, this is a sales page. This is fantastic. Men over 50, it's not too late to get stronger, leaner, and healthier. And it's some nice scannable copy. And it gives you some great bullet points on the advantages. It offers a free wellness session. I think I'm going to be a wellness coach here. It's not bad. It's actually a really good sales page. So the quick takeaway here for this episode is you'll be ahead of 90% of the people who do what you do just by adding clarity to your prompts. You will be better because you'll know. All right, now when ChatGPT asks you clarifying questions, the AI will give you better results 9 out of 10 times. I'd like to say 10 out of 10 times, but we'll just say 9 out of 10 times. I think you'll be happy with those results. Find your voice when talking to ChatGPT. And again, talk to it like a human and in a natural tone of language. I have a new podcast up called AI After 50. You can get it anywhere you subscribe to your favorite podcast. It's AI After 50. I hope you join me. So remember, ask clarifying questions, have ChatGPT ask you those questions, talk to the AI, let ChatGPT do it every day, practice every day, and you'll get much better. Until next time.